very honored to be here. My name is Jeff Bell, and I'm a holistic health practitioner and researcher, have been for about 35 years. And I'd like to change this from a presentation to more of a little mini workshop, which means that you guys can please participate, ask questions, even disagree. If I say something you don't agree with, that's totally cool too. And I also want to dedicate this little mini workshop to my father, who passed away on June 1st from a severe head injury after a fall. And he made it to 94, and I want to say that I'm grateful to have had him as a father, a brilliant coach, and in a minute when I tell you just a little bit about myself, you'll see that he is the person who got me started on all of this. So, I'm 61 years old. I was born in 1950, grew up in Southern California. My dad went through medical school, and I had planned to follow in his footsteps. And what got me interested in human anatomy, human biology, and everything related to that was I remember it very clearly when I was about 3.5 years old. It was raining cats and dogs and had been for about a week. And I went to my dad on Saturday morning and complained that I was bored out of my mind because I couldn't go outside. And he thought about it for a little while and said, well, I think I have a solution. Let's try this. I mean, my dad was nothing if not a problem solver. So what he did was he got out cases upon cases upon cases of human tissue slides that he had made as he went through medical school. In those days, the requirements for those things were much greater than they are now. And he got out his oil immersion lens microscope, showed me how to put the drop of oil carefully on the end of the lens, how to focus it, how to set the slide in the slide tray, and said, let me know if you get bored again. And I don't think I ever complained about being bored ever again in my lifetime that I can remember. So he got me started. He was my inspiration. And he also imbued in me a ferocious curiosity to identify problems, to understand them, and do my best to figure out solutions and to just seek after the information no matter where I had to go to find it. And I've pretty much lived my life following that principle. And so I'm very grateful to him. I want to talk a little bit, and actually I'm going to share one more very brief story with you. I started down the track of going to pre-med. By the time I got out of high school, I had finished about 90% of my pre-med stuff because I ditched as many high school classes as I could, went across the little town that we lived in to the state college and took all the pre-med stuff that I could do, which was a lot. I was bored with high school mostly, and I found the college programs much more challenging and interesting. And so I planned to go through med school and follow in my dad's footsteps. A little ways into that, when I got out of high school and actually got about the business of doing that, I found that I did not like the model. The model, even back in those days, which was a long time ago, more than 40 years ago, was still to focus on how do we suppress the symptoms. Somebody has a headache, God forbid, please, let's not find out what's causing the headache. Let's give them something to make the headache go away, and then we can get on to the next patient. And I just could not wrap my mind around or commit myself to that model. It made no sense. So I thought of a couple of analogies. And anyway, I walked away from there, and I'll get to the analogies in a minute because I think they're interesting. They'll give you a little more insight into where I'm coming from and what my philosophy is and what my practice is about. Anyway, I walked away pretty quickly from the whole med school model. I realized I couldn't do it. Went back to construction and structural engineering, which I had already been doing to pay my education costs. And did that for about 15 years. Got involved with computer technology, did that for a bunch of years, Then in 1989, but actually I'm getting ahead of myself. Before 1989, for about 10 years, I had been doing research in holistic health, and I wound up with a short internship and apprenticeship to a brilliant applied kinesiologist and chiropractor who very quickly entrusted me to actually begin delivering client services. He didn't call them patients, he called them clients. That was a more empowering model, and I have actually maintained that nomenclature. I think it's more respectful, and it also more clearly identifies who's the boss, which is the person who needs the help. They are hiring the practitioner to help them. It's not the other way around. So I don't like the idea of ceding one's authority to some exalted professional, and then you know, basically just follow marching orders, doctor's orders. I don't like that model very much. I think it's disrespectful and ultimately not productive of the real goal, which is good health and recovery from bad health. So anyway, so I worked for Thomas Enrique, which was the name of this chiropractor and applied kinesiologist, for about a year. And then for financial reasons, I went back into the computer technology for another few years. But I really was on fire to study holistic health, to study natural health. How could you enlist the body's aid and partner with the body to improve health, rather than trying to override the body and force it into things that weren't natural for it. So now I'm going to use one of my analogies. Suppose your house was on fire. You came home from a movie and noticed that there was smoke billowing out from a hole in the roof. And you called the fire department, and they showed up with a couple of big trucks, got there with the lights and the sirens blaring away in the whole 9 yards, and unloaded a few giant fans, plugged them in, and blew the smoke away and said, "Mr. Bell, your problem is you've got too much smoke here, so this is going to take care of it. We're going to leave these fans here. We've got some other people who might need some help, so we're going to go now, and why don't you call us in the morning and let us know how things are doing." Would you be happy? Would you continue to support that fire department?
Not at all.
Okay, so that's a pretty good analogy, and I'm going to tie it into a direct, practical analogy with health. You go to your doctor, conventional physician, and again, I'm going to say some somewhat harsh things about conventional medicine, but I'm not faulting the practitioners. I think the system, the model, and the training, those are the root problems. And I do believe that they're dysfunctional and that they need a serious overhaul. Okay? So you go to your doctor, and your doctor says, let's review your blood work. I'm noticing that your cholesterol is too high. Okay, so first of all, I want to ask you this. How many people, okay, this is a quiz, all right? So I want everybody to give me their best answer. How many people here think that high cholesterol is the result of eating foods that have too much cholesterol in them? Anybody go for that? Nate? Okay, all right, so it's what you've been told, so vote one way or the other, so you'll say yes, right?
Okay.
All right. Okay, so would it surprise you to learn that when you actually eat something that contains cholesterol, your digestive system, assuming it's functioning relatively normally, is going to disassemble that, and none, not one drop of the actual cholesterol in total that is in the food is going to make it intact into your bloodstream. Ain't going to happen. It's going to get disassembled down into component parts, and so whatever cholesterol is in your blood is cholesterol that your liver has manufactured because it believes that your body needs it. All right? So that's one. We're doing a little myth busting here, and I'm going to tie it back into this analogy in just a minute. Okay, so the cholesterol in the food does not equate to cholesterol in the blood, okay, or high cholesterol. Now let me ask you this. Anybody know what their last cholesterol levels were, total cholesterol from their blood test here? Can you throw out a couple numbers?
103.
103, okay. Anyone else got a number?
I don't even know what test.
Okay. All right. My last test was about 170, I think, 175, if I remember, a couple of years ago.
Is it the same test as blood pressure?
No. It has nothing to do with blood pressure. No, it's actually a chemical deal. And so here's the thing. I'm going to skip one part because we don't have enough data here. I was going to ask you whether you'd rather have a cholesterol total of 100 or 300. And for most people, Sherry possibly being an exception, 300 would probably be more healthy than 100. The real key, though, is what is the ratio between what's called low-density lipids, or LDL, and high-density lipids, or HDL. And you want more of the HDL if you can, and less of the LDL. But you're not going to achieve that by avoiding foods that have cholesterol in them. What's going to make the difference is if you eat and live in a way that reduces systemic inflammation. Because first of all, your body needs cholesterol. If you had no cholesterol at all, you could not live. Your brain wouldn't work, none of your organs would work, and cholesterol is necessary to create most of the hormones that run and regulate your body. All of the reproductive hormones, the chemistry in your brain, all of that requires cholesterol. So if you could magically reduce the cholesterol, say to less than 50 or something, you'd be extremely unhealthy very quickly. It would take about an hour for your health to completely deteriorate. Okay? So, the problem is, you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, your cholesterol's too high, so we're going to put you on a diet. You can't eat any more shrimp. You can't eat any more of this. Don't eat the yolks from eggs, because all of those things have cholesterol in them. Don't eat coconut oil, which actually happens to be one of the most healthy oils you can possibly eat, and it's loaded with cholesterol. No problem at all. Don't eat any of these things. And furthermore, we'll test your blood in a couple of weeks. This is a conservative doctor, is not overprescribing, at least by conventional standards. And we'll put you on some statin drugs that will tell your liver not to produce cholesterol. Okay? That's one approach. To me, that's the same as putting the fan there to blow the smoke away. Instead of asking what is going on in this body that it is producing more cholesterol than our profiles indicate is healthy, we're just going to take a fan and blow the cholesterol away, or give you a drug to stop producing it, and we're going to severely restrict your diet. Dysfunctional model does not lead to health. And if you read the European studies, and they're starting to come into this country too, that were not sponsored by the drug companies that sell the statin drugs, you will see the health side effects that these statin drugs are beginning to accumulate are frightening and astronomical. This is one of the big health crises that is going to come home to roost in the next, I'm going to say 4 to 5 years. We're going to see some real backlash from this. So, if you have too much cholesterol by the established profiles, which I also question, I think the profiles are a little extreme and a little too low. But if you have too much cholesterol, or if your ratio between HDL and LDL is not optimal, the thing to look for is what's causing it in the body. Go for the cause, which is why today's workshop is called The Roots of Real Health. Go for the cause. Don't go for the symptom. In fact, thank God for the symptom, because the symptom is telling you that something's wrong. It's just like if you had a little red light come on your car, you wouldn't say, darn that light, and put a piece of masking tape over it. You'd say, thank you for the information that something that may affect my safety or affect my pocketbook in a grave manner needs attention. Now let me go find out what needs attention. So you wouldn't like a mechanic to say, oh, and put a piece of tape over the light and say, problem solved, that'll be $50. All right? Or your transmission's making noise, here's some earplugs. Okay? Which is essentially what a lot of the prescribing to get rid of symptoms rather than finding the cause. So let's go back to the cholesterol for a minute, because it's illustrative. And this is really the model I follow in almost every area of health that I work with. What is the cause? So, you can find that there is too much inflammation in the body. So one of the things the liver will do is it will produce more cholesterol, which is kind of like a soothing agent to try and reduce the inflammation. All right? And so when it reduces the inflammation, the cholesterol will drop down to normal levels again. So sometimes something as simple as increasing your vitamin C, increasing your alkalinity, reducing your sugar intake, getting more exercise. I've even seen, and I actually know the person that these measurements were done on, who did nothing more than introduce the practice of meditating into his life. And his cholesterol went down from what was deemed to be dangerously high to an acceptable level, a healthy level again. And I would submit that that's because his emotional and mental stress was creating physical inflammation in his body. That's how it was expressing itself. And his liver was responding to the inflammation by generating more cholesterol. Okay? So first I want to find out, are there any questions at this point, or should we go on to next examples?
Very well said.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to give you another example. One of the other things that, if you want to look for an overarching theme, inflammation is it. Systemic inflammation, which again can be caused by emotional problems, spiritual stress, philosophical stress, financial stress, dietary stress, lack of exercise, hate your boss, lots of different things, okay, can cause it. Marital stress, not understanding what you're an expert in, the nature of relationships and how to keep them healthy and have them grow in a good way. Okay, all of these things can create stresses. The stresses can create inflammation. So I worked with a guy a few years ago named Jack, who was an avid tennis player. When he came to see me, he was extremely upset because his left knee had become so painful, and the doctors had done all kinds of things, nothing worked, and now they were recommending surgery to remove the cartilage, maybe at some point a knee replacement. Well, this was devastating for him because he was a very accomplished amateur tennis player up at the top level of competition. He was in his early 40s when I saw him the first time, and basically he hadn't been able to play for 4 or 5 months, which was very upsetting to him. And what we found was that dealing directly with the inflammation in his knee was not going to work, and that was because that was a symptom. And you're going to be surprised when I tell you what finally turned out to be the key. And it took a few sessions with me to play health detective to get to the bottom of this and come up with a solution. Anybody want to take a guess at what we found?
Drinking too much coffee or something like that?
Peripherally could have helped, could have contributed. The major cause, since we have short time, and I'll get to it. The major cause was something called leaky gut syndrome. Anybody know what that is? I know Sherry does. Okay, so here's what that is. If you have unhealthy organisms living, in this case in the small intestine, they irritate the lining of the intestine. And what happens is the pores in the lining of your intestine are supposed to be a certain size. All right? If they get irritated, these pores get too big. When the pores get too big, food particles that are not sufficiently broken down tend to get into the bloodstream. Your immune system, because these food particles are not broken down to their basic components enough, identifies them as unwelcome proteins, unwelcome substances, and your immune system goes after them. And you get a syndrome where you get rotating food allergies. So the first day you eat peanuts, nothing happens. The second day you eat peanuts, you feel kind of crummy. The third day you're sicker than a dog if you eat them again. And seemingly innocuous foods that you've never been allergic to before are rotating around, where if you repeat them, you become allergic to them. And if you get off them for a while, the allergy subsides and you can eat them once in a while again. So you're not truly genetically or at a foundational level allergic to these things, and yet you're experiencing allergic reactions. Well, one of the things that can happen if you're repeatedly experiencing allergic reactions, and if your immune system is on hyperdrive all the time, it never gets to relax and rest and reset itself, and the chemistry in your body is always in defense mode and never gets to just relax and be in stasis, or homeostasis in this case, is you get inflammation that can get into the joints. And that's when it happened in his knee. So it turned out the key to fixing his knee problem was to fix the leaky gut syndrome. Basically what we did was we used beneficial bacteria. We used some herbal agents to get rid of the bad guys that were living there. So we cleaned up the population in his small intestine, and then we used some natural different supplements and substances to rebuild the mucosa, the lining of the small intestine, and within a couple of months he was back playing tennis again. He's now in his mid-60s, and he plays tennis 4 or 5 times a day and regularly beats the tar out of 20 and 30-year-olds, and he's happy as a clam. So that's an example. Now, I know we're running short on time, so I want to say 2 more things. One, because I'm kind of an eclectic practitioner and I'm way outside the box, I offer people a complimentary initial session with me. You can spend some time with me on the phone, usually half an hour to 45 minutes, or if we happen to be in proximity, we can do it in person. And you can tell me what your health priorities are. I'll discuss with you what my approach might be, what additional information we probably need to seek. I'll make some recommendations. I guarantee you will get some benefit from that. I've never had anyone take advantage of that, not get some benefit. There are no strings attached, no obligation, and if you find value in it and you want to continue, then my services are available on an ongoing basis. That's pretty much it. I want to thank you for being here today. I wish we had more time. I do have some handouts there. Feel free to take what you want, and if you have a question.
Yeah, I have one question. You were talking about the tennis person and the intestines, and pretty much it sounds like a cleansing sort of thing. And I'm using that loosely. So, in reference to that, how do you feel, or what do you think about some of the colon or cleansing processes? There's one that uses the cayenne pepper, honey, and something like that.
The master, there's a master cleanse.
How do you feel about these cleansing
okay.
relative to what you were talking about, the intestines, and how would that?
Okay, so this is just my opinion. I've done a lot of research, both reading. I get a lot of my research from the German medical clinics, which in my opinion are the best in the world. Okay, and I regularly work with people some of whom are very ill with late-stage cancer, with MS, and serious problems. And according to their research, I would say probably 80 to 90% of the cleanses out there that everybody's recommending are probably not a good idea. I think they're overly stressful on the body, and the best of the kind of, let's call them the popular cleanses, the best of them will clean the last half of your colon, if you're lucky. They don't address the problems in the small intestine, and they don't address the liver and gallbladder, which are very important. Because here's the thing, this is a system. This is the other problem with conventional health, and even with a lot of, quote, holistic health. It's a little bit like if you went to your mechanic and you had 4 or 5 things going on with the car that were maybe interrelated. Maybe you kept wearing out brakes in the front, okay? And maybe it's an alignment problem, but all the guy's doing is replacing the brakes all the time and running you up a bill through the roof. That is not good practice. It's not good medicine. It's not good at all. So, I have specific cleanses that I like, just a few of them, and they address the entire GI tract. They address the immune system. They address clearing the blood from all the stuff that builds up there. They address cleaning the lymph system, and they address, particularly importantly, the liver and gallbladder, which are necessary to cleanse because those get gunked up. I've had people come to me who were scheduled for gallbladder surgery because they had stones, and their surgery fortunately was off 3 weeks from now because the surgeon was in the Bahamas testing his new sailboat or something, right? Or just busy, whatever. And by the time they worked with me for a couple of weeks, they called the surgeon up and said, I feel great. Let's wait on this. Maybe we'll do it in the future, but not now. And the reason for that is if you give the body what it needs by getting rid of what it doesn't want, giving it what it needs, you'll find that the body will correct itself to a large extent. I do have some handouts over there. Please feel free to take whatever interests you. And if you would like a session with me, call me. My contact information's there. We can set one up. If you know anyone who's open-minded enough to try some things that are outside the box and who may be dealing with, just wants a little clarity. Maybe they want to say, these are the 5 options that I've been given. What do you think? Did I miss something? Should I do option 4? Or what do you think? And just wants, maybe a third opinion. Okay? I like to make myself available, and